Pleasure to be here. I'm going to bring you home. I'm the only thing really standing between you and a racing car, so I'll do my best. I always start with this chart. You know, it's just always good to kind of level set where we were, where we've come to. And I think we're at a special moment. I think we're at an inflection point, a tipping point, a sea change. I really feel it, as I've pointed out on this chart. You know, sometimes we're just like so deep in the technology, so excited about what's happening, we just don't step back and see it. But if you look back at the last couple of decades, we had inflection points there too. If you go back to the 90s, and I was thinking about what would I call each of these decades. I actually was thinking about this as we're going through the presentations today, so I've just come up with some new names. You're going to be the first to hear it. But the 90s I'm going to call the You Got Mail decade. You Got Mail. Do you remember the movie? Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks. What year was that? I mean, right? 70s, 80s? No, it was 1998. America Online, you know. Remember logging in? Remember that sound? It wasn't that long ago, right? And then you go to the next decade, and it really became more about, okay, connecting people, social media. And again, like Facebook's been around forever, right? No. It was really 2006 when they allowed people to start signing up that had a valid email that were over 13 years old. So I'm going to call that decade the You Got Liked. I mean, we all like to have those likes, right? I swear, my daughter, who's starting a family, she's like chronicling everything on Facebook, just going for those likes, you know. I'm always there, as you know, supporting her in that. It really was about, I think, this last decade about connecting people to knowledge, people to people in a way we haven't seen before. And it was transformational. It really, but what's happening now? What's happening now is machine to machine, machine to people in a way we haven't seen. And the difference between people and machines is machines never sleep. And as you've seen today, the data coming out of the industrial environment, the data coming from machines, the data that we can access to really create new value, new outcomes, it's huge. It's absolutely huge. So I'm going to call this data, I'm sorry, I just gave it away. I'm going to call this decade the You Got Data decade. So we went from You Got Mail to You Got Likes to You Got Data. That's what we're all about. And what is really creating this inflection point? It's not a new technology breakthrough as much as it is just this proliferation of sensors and connectedness and the ability to persist that data at a low cost, the ability to process it at a low cost that we've never seen before. I mean, look at what we are downloading every day. And it's only going to get better. It's only going to get faster. One of the things I do as a chief technology officer is I look at the latest technology right over the horizon. And one of the ones I'm looking very closely at right now is something called Li-Fi. So forget about RF spectrum, and forget about 4G. Let's go to the light spectrum, which is 10,000 times bigger. It's unregulated. It doesn't cause any interference. There's no health issues. How many high-def movies can you download in under a second using Li-Fi technology? That's just blinking digital lights. 18 high-def movies in under a second. Where are their lights? Everywhere. So some really cool stuff beginning to happen. And then, of course, we can leverage the advances in data science now, predictive capabilities, advances in cloud and edge capabilities. It's all kind of coming together at the right price point, the right availability, the right bandwidth. That this, and what GE is calling it, is industrial internet. And when you have a company like GE that's known for heavy industry, and all of a sudden they're on this bandwagon. And Immelt said it. We have a Minds and Machines event every year now. Our fourth one's coming up this fall in San Francisco, where we talk about this and the creation of GE Digital, right? So his big statement he said a couple years ago in New York City at the Minds Machine was, we went to bed as an industrial company. We woke up as a software and analytics company. It's the only way to compete. It's the only way to survive. It's what every company has to do to move forward. But for a big, heavy industrial company to make that big leap forward, and I just love Jeff's vision. I mean, he's betting the company on it. He's betting his legacy on it. He's poured over $1 billion in this GE Digital initiative to create a platform for industrial internet. Now, why? I mean, there are other cloud platforms out there. They're all great, but none of them will scale to what we're trying to do in the industrial world. Connect all the buildings, connect all the cities, connect all the energy manufacturing, connect all the transportation, connect all of the jet engines that are flying, which, by the way, a GE engine takes off somewhere in the world every 2 seconds. And we monitor that. I was the CTO for aviation before this business unit, and monitoring those jet engines, the newest lines that can produce 5,000 data points a second. So this definitely is the you got data age. So the business case for Current, which is GE's newest startup, it hasn't even been together a year yet, is around distributed energy. With GE's acquisition of companies like Alstom, we've become one of the biggest centralized energy producers in the world, whether you're talking about driven from gas turbines or nuclear or whatever. But what's happening now and what's being enabled by this inflection point is the age of distributed energy. You can think of that as virtual power plant, or you can think of it as net zero, but it's really about universities like Georgia Tech, cities like Atlanta, big companies like Home Depot, becoming virtual power plants. And what does that buy you? Becoming virtual power plant is not moving from kind of dabbling in some of the renewables to really creating enough energy to fuel the majority of your business. And in that sense, becoming very resilient, being able to disconnect from the grid. Because like it or not, the price of energy from the centralized grid is going to continue to go up. Even with the price of fuel going down, it's going to continue to go up. Why? It's driven a lot in that delta you see in this chart from the loss and the distribution of energy. There's just no way to get around it. So if you can create energy locally and use it locally, you're going to lose a whole lot less. In fact, I'm working on blockchain technology to trade energy locally with your neighbor, right? I mean, it's very transparent ledger that enables this, and the ability to trade it locally means you don't lose so much in the distribution. It means you know where you're getting it from. You're really you're not buying into some credit from some, green energy production somewhere offshore. This is truly the, I'm going to call it the slow local electron movement, right? You know where you're getting it. You're going to get the most out of it. So that's why we created this business unit, really to double down our efforts on distributed energy. So GE, as only GE can do, moved some assets to this little startup. They moved the solar business to us. They moved the storage business to us. They moved the electrical vehicle charging business to us. And then curiously moved the $1 billion LED business to us from GE Lighting. GE Lighting still exists. We just got the LED business. And one of the reasons this is important is if you look at the statistics on the bottom, there's this huge transformation going on in the world to LED right now. And LEDs, being digital, have the opportunity to be a digital base for this effort. And it's really important because if we really are going to pull off distributed energy, it's not just about highly efficient, low-cost renewables and energy storage, but it's about how to apply that energy in a far more intelligent way. And the lighting actually gives us the digital presence to do that. So you know what? I don't even call them lighting or fixtures anymore. I call them digitalization platforms that also create lumens. Big shift in the world. So what is our strategy? So our strategy at the top is reduce, produce, shift, and optimize. That's what's going to get us to distributed energy. And it starts with the sensor-enabled technology. It starts with the ability to get data about the environment so we can start to apply energy, not just understand energy and understand how to optimize energy equipment, but understand how to apply energy that's associated with a task. And I call that contextual awareness. I call that contextual adaptive systems. We haven't had that opportunity yet, right? The technology's there now, but how do you get it out there to really understand what's happening in the environment? You can't do it by just sticking up battery sensors everywhere and every kind. You got to do it in a way that's strategic, where you can get the ubiquitous minimal set of awareness that's maintainable, that's scalable. That's lighting. In fact, one of the big plays for lighting as we move forward is also as a Wi-Fi hub. One thing I guarantee you, there's always going to be more lights out there than there are going to be smartphones, right? So, and if you leverage that Wi-Fi capability, even better. And advantages to using Wi-Fi as your last mile hub to transmit data is it's more secure because it doesn't bleed through the walls. And you can use it in environments like planes, in hospital operating rooms, and in nuclear power plant control centers because it doesn't have that RF interference. So that's a big part of it. Then with that data, it's all about software and services. We've been talking a lot about that today. What can you do with that set of data in terms of dashboards, analytics, new applications to improve performance? Now, the great thing about using lighting to kick this thing off is we can create something called lighting as a service with the great work from our GE Capital team. So you don't even have to lay out capital to install this digitalization platform. Lighting as a service means you get that digitalization platform with this whole new set of sensors, but you're paying for it on a monthly basis just on the money you're saving from the LED. So that's the first step in the strategy. The second step is, with this increased awareness, tie that to your building management systems. You're going to get an additional ROI in the next 1 to 2 years from better efficiency because you're holistically monitoring the entire built environment with this set. And then the third wave based on this lighting is a whole new set of things that you can monitor to drive business competitive value, which gets right to David Metcalf's point earlier today, that we're combining the energy play with other sensor data that can drive additional value that's going to really amp up the attractiveness of what we're doing in the energy space. And then industrial capabilities, really tying it to the industrial systems. So that's the strategy. So let's talk about this digitalization platform. So I call it the all-knowing lighting neural network. Isn't that cool? If anything, I get to say cool things in my job. So all-knowing, it sees, it's got cameras. It hears, it's got microphones. It feels, it's got vibration sensors. Very important in California and Kansas lately too. It smells. It can detect particulates in the air. For example, what sensor is important to your business? It can be attached to this platform. This platform has a CPU in it. It has storage in it. We can do edge processing at a level that's never been done before. Why? Because the price to do it has come way down. And if you really want to move from IoT, which was basically take data from a sensor, send it to the cloud, do some analysis, and repeat 10,000 times, this is all about real-time performance of our built environment. This is about second-by-second decision-making. This is orchestration of the real-time performance of our daily lives. You can't afford to send everything to the cloud. You don't want to send everything to the cloud. From a liability point of view, you want to be very selective what you send to the cloud. A lot of data has a very short shelf life. So whatever we can process on the edge. So we're running right now in these edge devices up to 20 cores and up to terabytes of storage to do this. So it's all about a balance. So don't let anybody tell you it's with 4G and everything else, it's all going to be cloud. Cloud is always going to be there. We need 4G, but you at the same time have to push the edge capability. All right, so putting something like this together in the built environment. So I'm going to start with energy management system applications. How do we pull it together? So here you see lighting is giving this whole new ubiquitous set of knowledge that's combined with everything else we've been talking about today. And key to this is the data from the utilities. Key to this is what UrgentNet brings. So they're key in our offering to pull in that data and fuse it with the other data that we're getting to drive new outcomes. Okay, what about all the data from the equipment that's running in the built environment? That's a challenge. There's a proliferation of every type of equipment you can imagine from every vendor and every rev level. So we're doing things like partnerships with Tritium's, Niagara Tritium and their JSPARKs, which can bring in a lot of these data feeds. And we'll continue to do those type of partnerships. Their JSPARK just happens to be one of the biggest footprints out there for converging disparate data. Then we did an acquisition of Daintree, which enables us to do, on the other side, very easy, lightweight, wireless mesh networking to bring in data feeds. Not everybody's got the heavy built environment with a JACE implementation, so if it's a company that wants to do something quicker or can't afford to invest in JACE, Daintree is a great solution, has a great footprint, great turnkey technology to do it. And then, of course, just bringing in all the data from everything else I've been talking about. And what does that enable? So what we're doing basically in this yellow layer is integrating and correlating that data. That's what it's all about. And providing that data then at the next layer to drive all these new applications. To drive the type of view that Lucid was talking about that I think positioned it really well. We're moving away from commissioning separate systems, managing to set points, to really holistically looking at the entire set of data, and this is creating huge new opportunity. And huge new opportunity in terms of reducing energy spend, improving our sustainability. In fact, to the point where this isn't a job for me. This is a mission. The opportunity is that big. As CTO in aviation, we reduced cost by $1 billion by using this type of approach. We did this first for GE under Immelt's direction, and now we've opened it up to the outside world just the beginning of this year because it drove so much value with GE. Now, to take $1 billion of cost out of GE's aviation business, that's huge. That was a well-oiled machine. And believe me, it was not like, when I first went and started working with them and GE Digital, it wasn't a kumbaya moment. It was like the engineers are saying, what are you guys here for? We've got some of the best engineers, the best physics-based analytics. You don't think we look at data? So I said, okay, well, Immelt's giving us this direction. We're going to work. Yeah, okay. So they said, I'll tell you what. Pull out $50 million of our million of cost out of our business. That was their 2014 challenge. If you can do that in 2014, then come back and talk to me. Well, actually, to do that, we had to work side by side with our engineers. And in fact, we did pull out $50 million. So then they came back in 2015 and said, well, maybe you were just lucky. Maybe that was low-hanging fruit. I'm talking about data scientists sitting down with engineers. These two worlds coming together that in a way that have never come together before. So we took on the $150 million challenge in 2015, but by then we had a machine in place. We had the data scientists. I had data scientists from Yale that had never worked in engineering, This one woman had only been with us a couple years, but she was a brilliant data scientist. You should have heard her talk about jet engines. Oh my gosh, it's just like she had grown up in it. And she was able, within single percentage points, to match some of the analytic runs that took months to do in aviation in overnight runs. Just doing historical regression analysis, throwing in all kinds of data points, coming up with emergent patterns. And that year, we drove out not just 150 million, but over 300 million in cost takeout. So it's huge. It's real. So what's the opportunity here? Now I'm going to go to David Metcalf's point, because I've been in this space a long time. Unfortunately, for all the reasons he said, energy by itself, green by itself, only gets you so far. What other lenses can you use? You've got all the data now. If we can combine with other plays, we can make the progress we need to in energy and sustainability while knocking off all kinds of new challenges in other spaces. If you're monitoring that environment, there's the health lens. You know, there's one architect in Connecticut that came to me. He created just a beautiful new development, $1 million plus houses in Connecticut, and it was all like, you know, all the latest thinking in green, LEED, everything. So you get the prospective buyers in there, and he's just so excited about it. And he'd be taking him through, and the first thing you want to show him is the energy systems, and he talk about, you know, how they, mass of the house, the insulation, the renewables that were incorporated, and the buyers quickly are just like, you know, show me the family room, you know. So he's like, Dave, what other lenses can I use? And if I look at the new generation, what they're looking at, you know, they're not just buying paint anymore. They're buying organic paints. They're thinking about the volatile gases. They're thinking about health. So let's talk about this development as the healthiest place to raise a family, because of the initiatives he did, it really was. And it's just some different data points you could bring in, right? Think about in the office environment, productivity. That's a great lens. If you start to measure productivity, those numbers go up really fast. So I don't think of a heating, air conditioning system as, you know, a compressor, vents, filter. I think of it as the respiratory system. Of course, my undergraduate work was biology before I went into computer science. So the respiratory system of a building delivers a quality of air that has just the right mix of oxygen, CO2. Why? Because we're looking at CO2 levels constantly. We're not exchanging air in buildings because of an ASHRAE standard. We're exchanging air based on the need of the occupants. If there's nobody in the building, don't exchange air. You're just wasting energy. If we've got a big conference like this and you're falling asleep because I'm talking, which you may because my wife says I have a soothing voice, and when she can't sleep, she says, talk to me. Okay, that's too much information. But the question is it because of my voice, or it's because the CO2 levels are too high in this room? So, you know, I'm starting to get a lot of interest from big real estate portfolio holders on just how we can help them with productivity in a scientific way. I mean, the new generation wants transparency. You can say this is the healthiest environment. You can say this is the most productive environment, but if you back it up with data, it's huge. And guess what? All that's related to energy usage. So we looked at the retail sector. So the data that we're surfacing from this platform, if you look at Point Inside or Moingo or Kian, if any of these names mean anything to you, these are companies that use the data to understand how people shop and how to increase yield rate in the shopping space, to look at dwell times, to look at how long they spend at end cap. So our lighting systems actually can give them that dwell time, can give them those heat maps, can give them that. Event board is looking at space utilization. You know what the biggest cost to companies are? You know, we saw some of the figures today is just the buildings and facilities, and we think about how can we heat them more efficiently or condition them more. Well, what's the best thing you can do is really understand your total space, how it's being used, and find ways to release space. That's got the lowest footprint of all, right? Okay, conscious of time here. So hopefully you're getting that point that David was saying, that if we can start to combine this data with other plays, we're going to get a lot more traction. We're going to move a lot faster. So we're committed to doing this open. If you're asking me who our competition is, you're asking me the wrong question. As we move forward, ask me who I'm collaborating with. It's that big of a challenge. It's the only way we're going to pull it off. So we're open on the bottom. We accept any technology company that can bring us data. We're open at the top. We'll work with any company that can build apps based on this. It's all about being fast. You heard that today. We're using the latest trends in technology to do that. Containerized software, Docker, if you've heard of that. We're using our platform to scale it, but our platform is just one of the operating systems. It's not a lock-in. You can use any of the platforms. And the capabilities. It's got to have these edge capabilities. You've got to have the connectivity. We can't move forward if it's not secure. That's just table stakes these days. You've got to think about it. So think beyond energy management. Think about things like productivity. Think about customer experience. Think about what we can do with this data. That's the huge new opportunity. And that's what's going to give us a bright future together. Thank you.